Hello everyone, very good morning and good evening, and we are back with the game of high flyers, the next episode. In today's episode, I have with me is Mr. Vikram Verma. So before I welcome Vikram, let me give a brief introduction about Vikram. So Vikram is having a huge and large experience in SAP. He's having 23 plus years of experience in SAP. Before that, he comes from the sales and the operations background. He has a 6 years of operations background. He's out of US, and I think from 1998, he's working in US as a SAP consultant. And from 1992, he's there in US. So his SAP experience is very enriched. He came to us around, our association is almost 1.5 year long now. And he has taken from Sastrageek, he has taken a multiple different training, sourcing and procurement, sales, Ariba, EWM, TM, all the logistics part he has touched and taken the training. So when he came to us, he was working in his company as a program manager position where they were implementing SAP S for Hana. And recently they have completed their go live also. So as a program manager, I know a lot of program managers who just work at the higher level rather than jumping into the deep of the things. But he's the one who would like to jump deep into it. Not only that high level things knowing, he went into with the hands-on on all the sourcing, procurement, sales, EWM, TM, so that he can, in the program manager, he can give the right direction to the project and also working some part of the solution architect also. That's really I like about Vikram. So so he recently completed the SAP Go Live for his SAP S/4HANA project. So I thought it would be great to welcome him, and then we can discuss that what kind of challenges, issues has been faced in the S/4HANA implementation project and how he has handled in the projects. So with that brief introduction, Vikram, welcome to Game of High Flyers.
Thank you, Parminder, for having me. I look forward to the conversation and the discussion that will follow.
Yeah, sure. So I just give you a brief introduction about you, Vikram. So it would be great, if you can focusly let us know that the recent implementation which you have done with SAP S/4HANA, in general, what kind of issues you have faced, what kind of challenges which you have faced, what kind of things you have done which help to overcome the issues and challenges during SAP S/4HANA implementation project.
Sure, Parminder. So the first thing about the recent implementation that I took a part in was that it was a very, very aggressive Greenfield implementation. This company that I work for has been on ECC for almost, I would say, 20 years, and the transformation was now to S4. So I think one of the biggest challenges we faced was just going from GUI to Fiori. I mean, even though Fiori is great, Fiori is the way of future, but people who have, like we say, if you drive on the left-hand side and you have to go to the right-hand side driving. It's very different, even though you may have more advantages. So the first and the most foremost challenge we faced was users basically, struggling with the adoption of Fiori, even, during training, during OCM, orientations. So I think that was a huge challenge that we had. And then the project timeline was very compressed. We went live in less than 5 months. So the other challenge we had was that given you had 5 months, there was a lot of overlap between different activities. Typically SAP projects, have overlaps, where you have, fit testing going on and part of UAT starting, since we all now do agile methodology. So a lot of things kind of overlap. But here we had, in a month, we were doing, cutovers, trainings were going on, preparing for UAT, also mock conversions were going on. So that was another thing we really faced and was very challenging because the user base itself was not very big. So there were the same number of 12 to 14 super users who were trying to do everything. So to get them to basically do all these tasks in a focused way, it was very hard. So that was another challenge we faced. And then on top of it, we had multiple implementation partners. So, a lot of you would know that, even when you have one system implementation partner, you don't see the left hand talking to the right hand, where the OTC team is not talking to the P2P team. Then they don't talk to the finance team. They all make decisions in a silo. And then suddenly when you get to UAT or fit testing, you find out that, oh, I didn't think about this. Oh, I didn't do my GL account mapping correctly. So here we were talking about multiple implementation partners. So that was another challenge to keep them all kind of synced up and not working in silos. We also did embedded EWM. So the EWM team was making a lot of decisions on their side, not taking the OTC design into consideration. And then finally we found out that what they were thinking doesn't jive with what OTC was thinking. So we had a lot of issues in kind of syncing up storage location mappings and things like that. So I think these were some challenges. And then OCM also, OCM was there. But the thing about OCM was that they need time. They need to do good, have time for impact analysis, have time to build training content. There was not enough time. So everything basically was very 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 siloed. And then suddenly when the UAT came and the last 2 months came, everything had to come together. So it took a lot of effort to get everybody to talk together, to weave things together, to make sure the end-to-end solution works. So I think those are some of the challenges. But the good news is that we went live, just 2 weeks after we had to postpone the go live by 2 weeks, and we went live in less than 5 months. So it was, I've done SAP 23 years. I can tell you this was the most aggressive project that I've been on, going from ECC to S4, Greenfield implementation with EWM, with MDG, all these new solutions for the site. Ariba was also new. We still went live in 5 months.
That's great. That's great, Vikram. Less than 5 months having that big implementation is a great achievement, I would say. So what key things I have noted down the challenges is Fiori. Fiori is always a challenge, moving people from GUI to Fiori. And then project timelines, 5 line is a quite stringent timeline to get it covered. And then you're having a multiple implementation partner, and then coordination, and having a lot of improvements like embedded EWM also you opted for, and doing all this in 5 months is a great achievement. So I can imagine that what kind of thing you might have gone through to get it done in 5 months. It would be working 12 to 16 hours, working over the weekends. I can imagine. I have done one of the project in Saudi Arabia. We did in 4 months, but that was a smaller project. And that also we need to stretch ourselves like anything to get it delivered. So Vikram, you followed the Greenfield implementation, or you went ahead with the conversion?
We went with the Greenfield implementation actually.
So that would be also a good discussion point if you can highlight a couple of things that why not conversion and why Greenfield?
Yeah, because my organization felt that if you just go from ECC to S4 with the same business processes and not really improvements, then it is basically just changing the chassis of a car, but not really making any changes in the engine, where your car can go faster, is more agile and things like that. So as part of that, we that was the reason why it was an ROI thing also, that if you are putting a lot of money in this implementation and you're putting a lot of time in this, then obviously business wanted to gain some competitive advantage, and that is where this came into play. And trust me, through some of the trainings I did through Sastrageek, and the simplifications that you shared, Ravinder, I was able to actually take it to business, take it to the system implementation consultants, which was including SAP America. I really fought tooth and nail to basically bring some new functionality in the system. Instead of implementing classic workflows, we implemented some flexible workflows, even though there was some shortcomings in it, but we still enabled it. We went with BRF Plus for some outputs. We did AATP also. AATP could not meet all our requirements, but we are just doing our 2021 upgrade, and we'll get more functionality and we'll implement it. We also did multi-bank connectivity, on the finance side. We did, advanced credit management. So once again, we did not implement the entire breadth of those submodules or functionality, but we implemented what we could to get the team started here, because I have always felt that if you bring too much functionality to users, then they also get overwhelmed. So you want to start, slow and start with some functionality, and then you build on it. So that was the whole reason why we did Greenfield, because we wanted to basically adopt and benefit from some of the S4 HANA simplifications, and also build that as a platform in the template, so that way the other sites that will go live will benefit from it.
Great. So I'm a big fan and a big lover of agile methodology. So I always put that, okay, start with some decent and then keep on improving, because if you start improving everything, there's no end to it. So that's what you said, right? That started with one part and then add functionalities little later. So that should be there. So Vikram, that there are a lot of program managers, project managers are there. So if I were to ask you that, the couple of things which has definitely worked for you in this program, which you have done it, what kind of two or three things which you will suggest to all of the program managers to do it so that it would be also a successful S/4HANA implementation for them?
Yeah, Parminder, for a program like this, the first thing that comes to my mind is OCM, organizational change management. Even though sometimes people think that OCM has a role, but not as big of a role as your system implementation partner or your functional team members, your technical team members. I feel OCM on a greenfield implementation is probably one of the most important things. OCM is not only change management, but also training and impact analysis and getting pulse of business, giving them confidence. So initially we started with a weak OCM team, but as a program manager, I felt that weakness, and I very quickly moved and got stronger team members. We even got another OCM boutique shop to come and help us with the change management the program, and also with impact analysis, building training materials, supporting UATs, and then continuous trainings after that. So that basically helped us a lot. Even though even the time we still had some challenges, but I cannot imagine that if we did not have a strong OCM team at go live and even after go live, we would have had so many problems. Because one of the ways we got Fiori to be accepted and adopted was by even doing continuous training after go live. In the first 2 weeks, just because the runway was so small that or so short that we did multiple trainings even after go live with smaller group of members and kind of hit the topics that were the most important and the ones that needed reiteration. So OCM is definitely a very, very important piece of the puzzle. The second thing I would recommend is that make sure you have a strong functional team and also the right number of members, because the other challenge we faced was that because we had a lot of overlap between UAT and fits were also going on, then you had the whole mock conversions running, training was running. Everywhere you needed functional resources, because in the end, your OCM team can only write what your functional members tell you, because they design, they know how the system works. Now, when it comes to UAT, you can have a testing center of excellence. We had that. We had a huge number of TCOE members, and even though they said they had the functional knowledge, and some of them they did, but they did not know the design. They did not know the localizations that were done. And that is where, even with a pretty big significant number of functional consultants, we were still running very low on, or running very thin on the resources. And the thing that really suffered was the training content, because in the end, training requires time, it's a soft, the content is still a hard, tangible deliverable, but going about capturing it, making sure it's correct, it's a very soft deliverable. So we hurt on that, because the functional members were focusing more on UAT, more on cutover activities, pre and post validations with business, also planning on the conversion steps and all that. So training suffered. So I would say that the second thing is to make sure you have a very good coverage from a functional member standpoint, and do not never, if you have, let's say if you have OTC stream, if you have 10 functional members in it, make sure you have this in mind, that what kind of roles will those 10 members play? Because that has to be very clear, because you have to kind of do something like this, that like you say that, okay, these two will be kind of be focused on doing data conversions. These two should be focusing on training, material build. These three will probably work business to do UAT. This one or two will do fit analysis and also be solving defects as they come up. As you get into the more hectic phase, in the project, initially it's all design and build. It's all good till there. But the moment you start getting in the last 2 months of the project, you'll have many overlapping activities. And that's where you have to be very careful that you assign your technical and your functional resources literally at an object level, especially technical resources, then functional levels. functional members at the key milestone level, so that way you know who's doing what, and then you have a very solid resource plan that tells you if there is gaps in certain activities, then you know where to take a person and put that person in that area. So allocation of resources, especially functional, is very, very important. So I think I covered OCM. I talked about functional, resources, right? The other thing also I would like to recommend is that try to follow the multi-partner methodology. I wouldn't say have a half a dozen implementation partners, but don't put, this old saying, we all have heard it, right? Don't put your eggs in the same basket. You want to have some, you want to spread your risk here. So even though we had, our main SI was a big five, consulting, there's no more big five, but big four or whatever it is. But we also made sure we got, smaller consulting, niche consulting, organizations to help us. And that really helped us because, there was a resource crunch. There's a resource crunch in US right now on SAP resources, and even the biggest partners, they go and compete with everybody else to get people, and they start hiring people off the road and all that. So we just felt that going with smaller partners also helped because they were more flexible and we could scale up and down with them much quicker than a bigger, ship or a bigger implementation partner. So I would say always have some backups. You have your main implementation partner, but just don't put all your eggs in that same basket. Make sure you have a couple of other partners that you can, leverage and work with. And of course, it's a good check and balance also because some of these small implementation partners have very good consultants, good quality consultants. So when you get in a solution workshop, if you have everybody from the same partner, even though maybe some good ideas may be there, but sometimes junior level people will not say because they feel that they are, kind of in a conflict of interest kind of a situation. So that's why I like to put 2 or 3 consulting groups in a room. So that way the best comes out, when people go back and forth and discuss and share their thoughts. So I would always say that go with at least, dual or 3 implementation partners. One can be the main, but have 2 backups and 2 supporting partners who can help you in, moving your implementation forward. So yeah, those are some of the things I could think. I'm sure there is more, but that comes to my mind, Parminder. I hope that's good. If you want, I could probably think of some more examples.
Yeah, so the 4 key things we have talked about: OCM, then we talk about the good functional consultants, we talk about multiple implementation partner and the training. That are the 4 core pillars should be there. So I always believe that that it's a mindset is very important. Mindset need to be set it for the business that they are moving ahead. Maybe it's from
Correct.
GUI to Fiori, or the business will change, processes would be changed, and the mindset of the consultant also need to be set it up that for that process, and for that change management is very important. I have seen in most of the project I have worked, that is the area which is most neglected. I'm really
Yes.
happy that you have highlighted that. I need to go and explain into the projects that why change management is required. In some places the change management resources are there, but I saw that change management resources has been tagged only for training, so they are only
Yes.
doing the training, but change management need to play a bigger role in the project. They are second to the project management, so they
Yes.
need to drive all the changes, and especially going into the deep with business, that what exact change will happen in their day in a life, what kind of things will change when S4
Exactly.
HANA comes into the picture. So that's very important. I'm happy you have highlighted.
Yeah.
Second thing
There's
I
two more
would.
things I
Mhm.
would like to just, I just, when you take a pause, then you can think of some more things. But there's 2 things I would also like to mention here, Pramin. The one very important thing I missed is that, when you're going live and implementing such a big project, you know, this is probably one of the most important things. People always talk about communication within the organization, but external communication is so important. And even with all the due diligence and with all the early communications we did with our external partners, we still could not test everything because initially the OCM team came and they only talked about, within the organization communication to stakeholders, to businesses, business at the root level, to leaders and all that. So then, with my past experience, I've seen, I've worked with a lot with 3PLs and CMOs. Well, they have their own timelines, and really, from a greenfield implementation, you go to S4. There's nothing in it for the external partners. It's pretty much our initiative, right? What is in there for them? Because today, it's not that they will get more business because I'm putting S4. at this organization or any organization. So I reiterated very early in the game that we need to open up our external communication to partners, telling them, we're going to a new platform. This is when we're going live. We need to test these transactions with you. And the reason for testing is that we don't have any disruptions. Also shared some testing scope. And those things take so long, just to get their attention, because, these vendors or customers you deal with, they have their own initiatives. They don't have time to really take on many more initiatives. So you have to give them very early heads up. And that we did even before we started communicating, even before we basically kicked off the project. But even with that, there were some big organizations that said, okay, out of 3 transactions, we'll test 2, the other one you can do static testing and all that. So at least we got 70-80% done. And believe me or not, what we didn't test is what broke in production. So that's we all know that, right? What doesn't work in UAT, what you don't test, it's going to come and bite you. The only question is that, and the thing is that, on SAP projects, you can only get 70-80%. You may have 2 years, you may have a year, whatever it is, you probably get 70-80%. The question is the 20% that you leave on the table. Is that a deal breaker? Is that going to disrupt your business? Is that something you can kind of fix after go live? That's what you have to be very careful about. That don't leave the most important things or week 1, week 2 activities. If it's a finance, functionality, typically it's a month-end closing thing. So you have about 30 days after go live to fix it. But you cannot neglect your sales order processing, because that's the first thing that you want to do, and you want to make sure your sales are not disrupted. You're receiving. I always put it in this order. Sales order management is number 1 because it's customer facing. Inbound, you can do things, right? You can stock up, and you can say that, okay, what? I'm not able to receive for a week. It's okay. I have enough stock in my warehouse. So that ramp down and ramp up is also very important. Making sure business understands that even in a perfect implementation, you want to be prepared. You have, just like when you prepare for natural calamities, it's almost like preparing for that. So that education to business, like you said, you hinted on that explaining them what challenges you can face, explaining them the power of OCM, explaining them that, SAP projects, you'll have 70-80% in control, 20%, no matter how hard you try, you fix after go live. The thing is, you want to hit 20%. That's not a week 1 or week 2 activity. So I wanted to kind of mention that the external communication to partners is extremely important. And that's where OCM again comes into play. They will draft your communication, but the communication content has to come from your business. SOPs, making sure that your SOPs are getting updated in time, because that's another thing I've seen, that suddenly we will all wake up like 2 months before go live and say, oh shoot, what about SOPs now? And coming from a pharmaceutical background, those SOPs are validated. Where I'm right now, it's not validated, but if you come from a validated environment, those SOPs have to be signed by half a dozen people. I mean, you can put it together in a week, but to get sign-offs takes you a month. So I'm just saying these things, are soft things, but they can really make your go live very, very challenging, or you can even push your go live dates. I mean, if you don't communicate to your customer, if you don't test with your customers, you have to move your go live date. And I've seen that many times in my career, where we have a go live date, but guess what? We could not get our external partners time. So now we have to wait for 3 more months and do all the testing, and then we can go live. So just wanted to add that. I hope, that made sense.
Yeah, perfectly. It makes sense. And thank you for highlighting all these points. I want you to highlight quickly couple of points where basically, that things has not worked for you, or you should suggest to the another program manager, boss, these 2 or 3 things I would not recommend. Please don't do that.
Yes. So the first thing I would like to say is that try to minimize overlaps in the last 2 months of go live. That is the biggest lesson I've learned again in this implementation. And it's not so challenging from an IT standpoint, because you can ramp up IT, right? You can get IT skill sets, functional resources, technical resources, to come quickly and pick up the read design documentation, do quick KTs, and get the person to hit the ground running. The challenge is on the business side, because to ramp up business, knowledge and business understanding, you can bring backfills, but even backfills take months to come up to speed. So I would only say one thing, that do not overwhelm your business users. And because what happens is that when you start overwhelming your business users with multiple activities, then they're not able to do justice to any of the activities. When they sit in training class, they'll think about conversion. Conversion activities. They have to, support those discussions, provide activities, ramp down, ramp up, and all that stuff. When they're sitting in a conversion discussion, they start thinking about data validation that they do. When they sit in data validation, they'll start thinking about UAT. So the one thing I would say is that try to get as much off your back, or try to get the monkeys off your back, as much as possible before you hit that last 6 weeks. Now, some things are inevitable. You just cannot, move some, your production data conversion, all that has to happen, at a certain time. But what I would say is try to get your fit testing out of the way. Get your UAT done. It's always a chicken and egg thing. Some people say that you do training before UAT. Some people will say you do UAT and they'll do training, because that way the training is, well understood. I could never figure out what is better, but it all depends on your organization and the kind of users you have. Here, I felt that if they had done training before UAT, given the timings are very compressed, then I think we would have done better. So in this scenario, I wish we had not done training and UAT at the same time, because the users were very overwhelmed. The other thing is, I would also recommend very, very strongly is make sure your testing center of excellence is engaging with the functional team very early in the game. Make sure that they do not write scripts from, what is it? There's a SAP site, I forget the name, where you have a lot of standard scripts.
Activate.
Yeah, there is a site. I have to, I'm kind of not remembering it, because I kept telling them that, guys, it's a good starting point. Your baseline is okay, but you need to basically sit with functional resources in their function in their design discussions, in their UAT, in your fit testing, because from where you should get the content and build your UAT scripts, and you should do pre and post validation with your functional team members. Otherwise, what will happen is, if they have standard out of the box scripts, users will reject it on day one or day two. They say that what we are testing doesn't even make sense. And then what starts happening is you start doing off the script testing, and in that you don't document well, you will miss things. Then you're at the mercy of the user. You'll miss things that should have been tested. And it's always like this, that what you don't test in UAT or in your fit, you don't know whether it works or not. And there's a very good chance that what did not get tested or did not work in UAT will not get fixed into production, because there's not much time between UAT and go live, because then the team moves on to the next set of activities. So that's my second or third thing, that make sure that you never do off script testing, and make sure that you have scripts, and you should never take the script and do UAT for the first time. Show your script to business in the first time in UAT. Make sure you do early analysis, early reviews with business. And what I mean by that is, whether it's your interface that you're building, whether it's a piece of functionality, do not wait till UAT to show that to business. Do small demo sessions, do test scenarios, reviews with them. So that way, when they see the final product, not from a go live standpoint, but from a UAT execution standpoint or a training delivery standpoint, there's very little surprises. Then it's tweaking and not restarting and doing something from scratch. So I would say that make sure that you are fully engaged with your business. If you're not engaged with your business from day one, you'll not be successful, because the more you engage with them, you're preparing them for what is coming, and then you become partners, and then the trust factor goes up. Then you understand where they're coming from, they understand where you're coming from. So for me, that's probably the most important thing, to stay engaged with business. And please do not engage them for the first time. You engage them in design discussions, and then you engage them in UAT. Please do not do that. Make sure you keep them engaged in every milestone of the project.
That is the core of agile methodology. Keep on engaging with your business user. Always
Yes.
feel them that they are part of the game. So one
Yeah.
of the things which you have mentioned about the UAT, I remember that that is the best practice explorer. So we use that UAT scripts to train the consultant. It's not for the business. Okay, people think that it's for the business, download it and give it to the business. It's not for the business. It is used for the consultant. Get them trained that this is how the process need to happen. All the UAT test scripts need to be rewritten, because it's so much of business need to be involved. I remember in the
Exactly.
last project, I need to really had a hard time with my project management team. I wanted that before we start UAT, all the UAT test scripts need to be signed off from business. Business need to go through it and sign off it, because I was knowing that if it does not happen, it would be having a lot of mess in the UAT. So that step is
Exactly.
very important. Great, you have mentioned that.
Yeah, and I'll just say one more thing, Parminder, if it's okay, that make sure you have uh, a couple of strong integration managers. You know, I have mixed thoughts on that. So you don't want integration managers to start playing the role of functional leads, because if you have a lot of integration managers and strong integration managers, then they become a crutch for the functional team members, where the functional team members then leads will start saying, oh, you know what, let's put everything in the integration bucket. So that way the integration office takes care of it. So I like to, use, it's a double-edged sword, but it's important to have, integration managers. And that's the power of having cross-functional, knowledge, that's where, and that's why these members are very important. But integration managers are required, especially in a multi-project system implementation partner projects, because it becomes very, very, then what happens is that you start seeing some ego clashes also come up very quickly. Hey, I'm from organization A, for example, I'm from IBM, I'm from Accenture, I'm from SAP America, and my methodology is the best. Or what I'm building, I think that's going to fit everybody's, requirements here. So that's where we have to make sure that we have integration managers who are, ensuring that the teams are getting together. And one thing you should also do, or not, I would say not, because since we're saying not do's, don't do this where each team works in a silo. It's a very, very, simple thing. And some of you may wonder that why am I even mentioning it, but you'll be surprised on projects when everybody gets busy and then they're working 12, 16 hours to deliver a project. They get so wrapped up with their own work that even some of the best people will forget that I need to, while I'm working on this design, I need to review this with a P2P team member, or I need to review this with an EWM team member, or finance is always, a very important crossroad point. It's so amazing that people get so wrapped up in their own work that even though they want to, they miss it, which is why you need these kind of people who will get people in a room at least once a week, if necessary more often, to say, okay, what were some of the key things you built, where are the touch points, who do we need to get together, where are the fallouts, what challenges are you facing, what decisions are stuck because of a decision that's a cross-functional nature. So that, again, once again, it's breaking the silos, working together, and ensuring that the decisions that you're making are end-to-end, and the end-to-end reviews are also very important. Do not wait to do your end-to-end reviews after UAT. Day in life is okay. Day in life can come after UAT, because UAT solves a lot of problems. Business gets more complacent with what has been built. Then the day in life can follow. But end to end should happen before UAT, so business can point out what doesn't work, what works, and they also know what to expect in UAT. So I'm just saying the sequencing of the activities in a project is very important, and not getting blindsided is also very important. So please do not get blindsided. Make sure you're sequencing your activities in a correct manner and avoid heavy overlaps on
Okay,
activities.
that's really good. So, Vikram, what was your overall team size for this implementation? How many count of full-time employees or full-time consultants was involved?
Yeah, so full time we had about, I would say, from the organization side, we had close to about, I would say, about 25 full time. And let me think. So that's functional and technical. Yeah, I would say about 30 to 35 full time employees, basically, who would also be, most of them were part of the Center of Excellence also.
Great, great. Okay, that's good. And
That was the, yeah, please
how
go ahead.
many geographical locations was covered?
So we covered, right now it was Midwest, but the way we are doing it is that the template was built through the Midwest region, Chicago area, but it's a journey, because in the next 2 years, we'll do 5 more. So that would be Northeast, southern part of US, and also the West side. So we have
For the
5
first
more
template
affiliates,
rollout, which happens in five
more
months,
locations.
how many locations was there in that?
So in this, we had one location. This is where we went live with. Now there's 5 more coming. So these are different lines of business basically. Also, they've got different businesses. So this was one line of business. Manufacturing is also going to come, but that's location number 4. The second one is more where there's a lot of variant configuration and packaging operations that are happening. This what we did was mostly warehouse management and a sales and distribution company. But and a lot of planning and all that. We also implemented an SAP tool called ESPP, which is meant for automotive. So we also implemented that. I forgot to mention earlier, ESPP was also in play, which is still evolving, on S4.
Okay, that's good. That the thing which you have shared about the uh, your implementation experience, challenges, and the things which should do, not do would be a great help. So now let me a little bit switch the topic. Okay, before switching the topic, one more question. So being a program manager, what would be a key thing you will advise that if they need to upskill on the knowledge side, what kind of things, how the program manager can prepare himself, whether he need to do a training or he need to go and search on the Google or go through the multiple different places, what he should do to prepare himself for an upcoming S/4HANA implementation project?
Yeah, I will speak from based on what I did and how I prepared myself. So I came from a lot of ECC experience. I had a very functional background. I started off basically as a business analyst, did hands-on configuration, wrote functional specs, did that for 10, 12 years. And then as I started moving in the org, structure and moved up in hierarchy, then started doing more project management. But I always focused and differentiated myself by being a functional project manager or a program manager or a product manager. Because, I'm not saying that there's no disrespect to, project managers who are, core project managers. They bring a lot of strength to the table. But my mantra in my work has been as a functional product or a project manager, as a program manager. And when you are a program manager, or if you're a product manager also, it's very important that you are cross-functional. So you want the length, and then you also want the depth, actually. So the thing is, the more length you get, the depth gets harder, right? Because then your focus is on many different areas of business. And we all, I always say this to myself, I've said this to many of my colleagues and people, who have worked under me, that one lifetime is not enough for SAP. You need, to know everything in SAP, you need more than one life. There's so much in SAP, and we only know what we touch or what we have touched. So what I did was, because I was coming from the ECC world into S4, I was looking to, train myself, and there's no end to learning. Every day you learn something, right? That's very important. So I started looking around, and, somebody mentioned, Parminder, your name. One of my Capgemini colleagues, he mentioned that you should go and check with him. And luckily, I was able to find you, and then I had that conversation. I don't know if you remember that night. And then I signed up. I think my first training that I signed up was for EWM, because I knew embedded was coming, and I was a WM person. So EWM was quite different, embedded and all that. So the way I did it was I went and I trained myself on different S4, different modules on S4. And it was not easy, because I used to do trainings on the weekend. There was a time when I was taking 3 trainings at the same time, because I wanted to be ready before the project kicked off. And I remember I was doing a procurement and a OTC training. So I had training on Saturday morning, there was a training on Saturday evening, and there was also training on Sunday evening. So literally, everybody in my family was saying that, even my kids were joking with me, that you're going back to school after so many years of work. It was so funny how they spoke to me. But that really helped me, because when I went into the project as in this role, I was surprised that so many people who had come from the implementation partners, they knew so little about S4, about the simplifications, about the concepts. And when they said that, no, this cannot be done, so I used to not be rude. Either I has to pull them on the side and say, no, there is a way to do it. In some cases, for the more wacky consultants, I used to kind of challenge them right in meetings and say, why don't you go and take a look? And those trainings that I took, the recordings I had, I used to literally listen to them, reiterate it in my mind, and go in solution workshops. And then very soon I saw this, that it became a two-way street. When I went with the training I had, that was my baseline. And then as I had discussion, I was able to take all that real world discussion and kind of bring it back to the training I had done. And then I started seeing that I'm becoming stronger. I know a lot more about S4, taking my training and mixing it with the real world, issues, challenges, use cases. So that's how I prepared myself. Training is one of the most important components. You need to have training, and Google is good, but your basic training is the first thing. And once you have that, then you can go and search Google and say, you know what, I've forgotten this. I need to get some answers on it. You can go to Google, and then you'll also figure out which Google answer is accurate, which Google answer is good, because Google is an ocean. We know that there's more bad stuff than, or poor information than good information. So that's how I prepared myself, because I wanted to be cross-functional. I was a functional program manager. That's what my organization was also expecting out of me. That's why I was hired, not to be a traditional program manager, but to be a functional program manager where I could hold the consultants accountable and also ensure that the best practices were being brought to the table. And I also learned through that, for sure.
Yeah, great to know that that you have gone in that much of depth to prepare yourself for a project. Very few people does that. That's what make you a totally different guy, that when you will be sitting it having a discussion, and not only that you would be able to guide them, you would also be able to facilitate and govern the workshops in a right way, in a right path. So that's really good. Okay, now let's switch the discussion. Now let me switch the discussion to the little bit on the US job market, because a lot of people listening to us in this channel, they would be interested to have some good opportunities to know about what is there in US, good opportunities in US. So how is the US SAP market is? We have seen Corona coming it up, COVID, because of the COVID, the things went down. So what happens in US? Is there any enough requirement if people get trained on SAP? Is there enough requirement in US to get them absorbed?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, where should I start on this? So I'll tell you one thing. We have been looking for a couple of resources, both full-time and consultants, and it has been very challenging. I think in my 23 years or 24 years, I think probably right now, this is probably the most ever demand I've seen for, I mean, everything is in demand here work-wise, but SAP consultants and good SAP consultants, big demand, and it's hard to find people. And the thing is that finding is one thing, but retaining is very hard also, because you get someone, and first of all, it's hard to find good people because they're all engaged. Some people are doing even 2 projects at the same time because there's such a dearth of good SAP resources here. But even if you get someone to retain the person, to ensure that the person is going to leave after delivering value, is a challenge. It's really a challenge, and there's a lot of attrition here. But in short, there's a huge demand for SAP consultants, both functional and technical. The only thing I would like to mention is that when you train, yeah, you have to know the subject matter. Is very important. But right now, what is also in very big demand here is the business-facing skills, being able to work with business to understand the requirements, being able to talk in business language, and being also able to work with a team of people and be a team player. I think those are the kind of people who are in a lot of demand. Your functional skills, technical skills are absolutely a must. But if you also have the communication skills, and if you have faced business, and you know how to work with them, those people are so hard to find. I cannot tell you how hard it is to find. We find 10 people, and we find maybe 2 people with that kind of a combination. Extremely hard, but very, very high demand for SAP consultants right now in US.
Right.
Everybody is going to S4, right? There's only so much time, and there's only so many people. And there's a lot. And also what happened, I just want to add one more thing, Parminder, that, when COVID came, you're right, it slowed down for about a year. So it's like everybody has now, it's like everybody's waking up from sleep now, because now the companies are realizing that, I only have so much time. It's not only about converting to S4, but also getting the most value out of it. Every company is doing some kind of an S4 activity, whether it's a blueprinting stage or phase 0 stage. Some companies have implemented, many have implemented, but there's a huge demand for SAP consultants right now. Yeah.
That's right. I'm telling my people from last 1.5 year. Even I got a lot of people came to me that who was working in operations, especially in the automobile company, got hit and they need to leave the job. They get trained on SAP, and in SAP they got the job, right?
Yes.
Because I'm telling them, because of this S4 HANA switch, that is making market really hot. It's really
Correct.
hot. So the people who has the right skill set, who know the things, really know the things, who has worked hard on their knowledge part. And the second thing you said is the communication. That's very important. You said, because what happens once you know the technical stuff, the 60% of the things you need to do is the business facing, communication, workshops.
Exactly.
So we also understand that now in what we have started in our trainings, we have a weekday session and the weekend session. Weekend session we have converted into the role play. So the new consultant, we give them the topic that they need to come, prepare the topic, prepare the presentation, and talk about that topic for 10 to 15 minutes so that their communication skills get improved. And then they come into the point that, okay, they are not into the listening mode. They need to deliver to the audience, right? So
Correct.
that's very important. So the market is hot if you are right.
Exactly. No, absolutely right. And if you are good, and if you have that blend, you're invaluable. That's what it is. Companies go out of the way, and they will get you. And it's very hard to find good people right now. I mean, we are struggling so hard. And even with the big consulting companies, all their best people are already staffed. So when new projects start, they go and hire off the roads, or the street. Basically, what I mean by this is that they will get independent or consultants, and sometimes you get good consultants, but mostly you get very ordinary consultants, and then it takes a while to get them up to speed, to train them. So good good people, even I would say mid level people will find their way very easily in the US market. That's how I see it.
So, what should be your advice? Because you are hiring the consultants and everything, right? That one thing you mentioned, the communication skills and the right skill set. But let's say if a consultant is there who's looking for a job in US, so what kind
Mhm.
of things he should work on, technical side and the non-technical side? How he can upskill himself that so that before coming to you, he is ready to be used, ready to be consumed.
Yeah, so you should definitely have an area of expertise. So,
Mhm.
you know, it's good to be a jack of all trades, but you should have one core area that you command really well. And then if you're a logistics person, let's say if your core skill set is, just an example, SD, or OTC, you have to make sure that you know a little bit on the P2P side, inventory management. Uh, if you can expand on the WM world, then you should know the inbound, outbound. If you're an SD person, you should know the outbound process really well, the integration, FI integration. So that's the subject matter piece. But you should be very strong in one area for sure, with good integration experience. On top of it, very important is, like I said, communication and your writing skills also. When you write specs and all that, in every project you have to write specs. And you'll be surprised, Parminder, and you'll not be surprised because you must have seen a lot of specs. Some of the specs are really good because they have a lot of technical details in it, but it does not tell you, I always, whenever I deal with consultants, I always say that, okay, I need to see the what first. What are we trying to do in that spec? you know and then how are you doing it? And then in the end, you should also say who's doing it and what and when you're going to do it. So the what, how, when, and who. Those are some of the things, people, when they write, when they start discussing, having that kind of mindset, very analytical in mind, that is very important, because you can know everything in SAP, but if you're not able to relate it to the project, to the business needs, then it's not that effective. So the most important thing is not about knowing everything. I personally think the most important thing is knowing what you know, but knowing where to get that information. That is very important. And then taking that and kind of connecting it to the dots, at your client site. That's what is very important. Applying your knowledge in a simple way, and exercising common sense, and showing simple things to business is where the gains would be. Because I've seen many consultants, they always start very complex, very in a very complicated, solutions and all that. start simple. If you start simple, if you go ground up and then go up versus going from the highest story in the building and coming down. Those are some things I would like to say. But like I would like to summarize this and say that being strong in a module with some cross-functional experience is very good. Having good communication skills, and communication skills is not speaking good English.
Right.
Communication skills is the content you bring forward when you have discussions. You can have the most ordinary English. Your accent doesn't have to be, those things are not that important, because when we come from other parts of the world, people know that English is not our mother tongue. The most important thing is that when you speak, your content should be good. You should speak what makes sense. Your ideas that you bring to the table, that is very important. And the moment you do that, then people even don't care. Nobody cares, what words you say and how you pronounce words and how you say things. It's what you present to the team, actually. So I would say that the content is very important. When you talk to business, talk in their language, and also adapt to business users. That's very important, adapting to people. You may have a business user who's an expert level. Well, with that business user, you can discuss functional specs, you can bring some design, you can show some config and all that. But if a user is very, very at a beginner stage, then you want to scale down very quickly and speak, in that in his world of communication, in his world of understanding. So scaling up, scaling down is also very important. So functional knowledge with communication, with content, I think those things are the things that you should focus upon.
Right. So to me also, when I was thinking to create a very good program in the Sastrageek, so I came up with the step-up circles, right? And many people did not understand, Parminder, what is this step-up circle? Why every Monday you do a session? So I told them, I understand that when you would be working in a company, you need to be strong in one core content, which you are doing in your training. But we understand that you need to do the integration a little bit about the finance, how the finance happens, what happens in QM, what happens in PM. PP. So that are the things we are delivering it here into the step-up circle, so that when you are learning one thing at a core, you also know the integration and some basics about the other modules, so that you can be part of the discussion and you can
Of
add
course.
more value for your clients. For example, the next Monday session, I'm talking about the data archiving part, right? So that is not the thing where you need to be expert into it, right? But become a
Yes.
functional consultant if you know some basics, then you would be able to take a part into the initial discussions and you would be able to generate more values.
Absolutely, Parminder. And I will tell you one thing very quickly. So uh, once again, this is praising you and your program, but the thing is that when there is a new topic, so I'll tell you this blockchain, topic that you discussed probably a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
After 23 years in SAP, I did not know what blockchain was. Literally, I did not. I'd heard this terminology before, never had the chance, or never, I forgot. I didn't go to Google and search it up. So when this came up, I said, oh, I wanted to know about this topic, and I wanted to kind of, see what this is. And sure enough, I went through that, lecture which was posted, and it made so much sense. It's such a conceptual topic, but that is what it is. It's not about knowing everything in detail. Like I said earlier, it's about knowing where you can go and get the information on the fly, so that you can prepare yourself for the discussion. And then once you get in the discussion, then you can go 30,000 feet deep. Then that's a whole different thing. But just knowing something at a surface level is also very good, because that way then you're not blinking like a deer looking at a headlight on a car. So that really helps. And I've seen this so many topics, and I always do that. When there's something new that comes up, I don't go to Google, I go to Sastrageek and put that keyword and look for it and see if there is something out there. And then a lot of things are there, because the content is also building up. And that's what I do, Parminder. I really do, and it helps me immensely. It really does.
Yeah, great. So, Vikram, thank you for coming it here, and thank you for sharing so much of valuable information on the S4 HANA implementation projects, challenges in the projects, and what project managers need to be done, program managers need to be doing it, and then talking about the US job market and how consultants need to prepare themselves, how they need to upskill themselves. Thank you for sharing that, and I hope that this information would be giving a real value to a lot of people who are listening to us. So again, thank you very much for coming up here in this episode.
It was my pleasure, my honor, Pravinder. And good luck to everyone who listens to this video. Hard work, dedication, and the confidence we'll get everything done here. That's what this is all about. So good luck with everything everybody's working on, and keep inspiring and keep going strong on everything. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Vikram. And thank you, everyone who are listening to us. We will be right back with the next episode of Game of High Flyers. So stay tuned. Thank you and bye-bye.